Hi, Chad McComas here from Rogue Retreat. Back again on life skills, and we'd like to really share things with you that we think will make an impact on your lives. And this week we're going to talk about the mind and trauma and some of those mental issues that maybe can track a person for a while. And it's really important to get those help that you might need on some of those things. You know, we're learning more and more that sometimes these things called ACEs, these traumatic things that happen to us maybe in childhood or along the way as we're growing up, that it can affect us in a big way, and we may not even know that it's affected us. So it's always good to get maybe some advice, to talk to some people that might know those type of things. We're constantly growing, and so it's not bad to know that we might need some help getting over something that happened to us along the way. And that doesn't make us a bad person. It just means that we're learning how to deal with stuff. We're so happy you're part of Rogue Retreat. We're happy that we get a chance to come alongside you and encourage you and build you up. And we're so proud of you and the processes you're making and the progress that you're making. We're excited about that. So keep listening and keep tuning in every week to Life Skills.
Hi, everybody. It's Sarah Blanchard, the Finance Director for Work Retreat. And I don't usually do life skills training, but I learned something recently and I really wanted to share it with all of you as it really helped our family. As some of you may know, we are a foster home, and so we have a lot of children in our care that have trauma in their background. And what I learned is how to teach children about trauma and how trauma affects the brain. And this little lesson worked really well for my son last night when I taught him. And so I thought I'd teach it to all of you because it's geared towards children but can also be used for adults. So trauma in the brain. So if we think of my hand here as the brain, and this little part here, this is the amygdala, and the outer part is the hippocampus. But for our purposes, what we're going to call this is the barking dog and the wise old owl. Okay, so this is our brain. Our brain is composed of more than two parts, but for this exercise, it's two parts. We have the barking dog and the wise old owl. And the barking dog, what that is that is the part of our brain from way back in the day. This is our fight, flight, or freeze portion of our brain. So this is the part of our brain that something happens to us and its immediate reaction is fight, flight, or freeze. That's what it does. And that's what it's responsible for. And then the rest of our brain, the wise old owl, this part of the brain, this is the part of the brain that makes rational decisions. So it's the part of the brain that goes, you know what? I'm not going to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger today, so I don't really need to fight, or I don't really need to run or freeze. I've got this handled. And it's this part of the brain that kind of controls the barking dog part of the brain. It says, you know what? You don't have to react because we've got this under control. Okay. So when we have trauma and trauma in children, but also trauma in adults, what happens is that this barking dog, this part of the brain, gets used a lot and gets exercised quite a bit and exercised. And so it automatically will jump in and start working. So something happens to a child with trauma that has trauma in their brain or in their past, and something happens, immediately it's going to go to this barking dog portion of their brain. And so this barking dog will start barking and they're going to fight. You know, there's a saber-toothed tiger. I got to fight the saber-toothed tiger, or I got to run from it, or I have to freeze really and stay very still so that it doesn't eat me. And everything that happens with a child with trauma, it ends up really exercising this part of the brain. And when the dog barks, when there's this barking dog, then the wise old owl flies away. It can't rationalize with the dog that's barking. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do with a child that has trauma is calm down that barking dog when there's a trauma response that happens. And the ways that we calm down this dog is breathing exercises. When you're breathing, what you're doing is you're telling this part of the brain that everything's okay. We can take a breath. Everything's going to be okay. And then once that barking dog quits barking so much and calms down, then the wise old owl can come back in and start making rational decisions. Okay. So when you're reacting to a child who has had trauma, or you're trying to get a child to stop having a trauma response, let's say you've asked your child to do their homework and they get angry and they're in that fight mode, right? And their dog is barking and it's barking really hard. Well, if you start yelling at them, that's just now two dogs barking. And I don't know about you guys, but I have 4 Chihuahuas at home. When one dog starts barking, and the rest of them start barking, none of them are going to listen to me, not even a little bit. So when you're yelling at a child or being angry with a child that's in this fight, or freeze, it's not going to work. They're not going to hear you. They can't hear rational, right? They're just caught up in this, and it will actually make things worse. It'll make their dog bark even more. And so what you're going to want to do is you want to get down on their level. You want to look at them in the eye. You want to help them to breathe. You know, if you've already explained to them the part of the brain and the dog barking, the wise old owl, you want to say to them, you know, right now is your dog barking, or let's calm your dog down so that the wise old owl can come back in and make those rational decisions for you. And so, like I said, we had this conversation with my son last night, and he's 8, almost 9 years old, and he got it. It made sense to him. And, you know, we've been working with him on breathing techniques and on that type of thing, but to see it in this way, something clicked in his brain. And one of the things that we're working with him on is your thoughts, and how to not be so involved in your thoughts, how to kind of just watch your thoughts in your brain. There's a great show on Netflix about this, and I'll email everybody with what that's called when I get out of here. But it's a new thing on Netflix about meditation and how to meditate and what meditation means. And in this show, they talk about how your thoughts are kind of like cars on the freeway, and how when you meditate, it's your job to just kind of watch the thoughts and watch the cars, but not really get involved with them. But just to kind of go, oh, there's that car, and oh, there's this car. And that what we tend to do is we see a car and we'll start chasing after it, and we'll get caught up in that thought. And when we're meditating, we don't want to do that. And so when I was telling him about the barking dog and about the wise old owl, and we have already had this lesson about your thoughts and the cars going by and just watching the cars, I was able to incorporate that in with the barking dog, where sometimes a barking dog will chase after a car. So let's say, you know, I tell him to do the dishes and he doesn't want to do the dishes, and he gets angry and he gets in that fight mode where he just wants to fight with me, and he starts chasing after that car of, I'm going to fight with my mom because I don't want to do the dishes and the dishes suck and this and then the other thing, where he's getting caught up in that, and then the dog barks even more because the dog's off chasing a car, and that's not what the dogs are supposed to do. So then paying attention to, oh, my dog's chasing the car, let's just take a step back, and instead of chasing it, and just pay attention to the thought, but not really react from it, and take the deep breaths so that we can calm that dog down and let the wise old owl come back, who can make the decisions of, you know what, doing the dishes isn't going to kill me. It's not like I'm going to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger or thrown into a volcano. I can just do it, and mom won't be upset, and life will go on, and making those rational decisions. So anyway, that's what I learned, and I wanted to share it with you. I hope you got as much out of it as I did, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.
Thank you, Sarah, so much for sharing. I never even had heard that before with the different parts of the brain. I think that's really interesting. It actually kind of connected with something that I learned yesterday. So we had a dog trainer come out to our house because my dog just gets so nervous and barks and growls every time people come, and he just does not calm down. And it's been a problem for a long time. So we finally called a dog trainer, had him come out, and this is the second time that he came out. The first time he was trying all these things and just stuff wasn't working. And then he asked us, he said, would you be open to using a bark collar? And we were kind of like on the fence about it because it doesn't seem, we didn't want to hurt our dog and we didn't want to punish him for just being anxious, because that's really what it was. He just gets so anxious when people come out to our house, and we live a little bit out of town, so we don't have people all the time, which probably doesn't help. But we said, okay, we'll try it, and we tried it, and the first time he didn't really understand what was happening, and he yelped, and it wasn't a super good experience, so we kind of put it on the shelf. And then when we had the dog trainer come yesterday, we kind of got our dog calmed down, and we put the bark collar on him, and he barked maybe once and then stopped barking, and we're like, well, that's good. But then he did something else, and he went and laid down. And it kind of goes back to that barking dog or the wise owl. When he was barking, he couldn't even process to calm down, and the rest of his anxiety went away as soon as he stopped having that ability to bark. When he knew he couldn't bark, then he was able to go lay down and go to sleep. And we've never had him go to sleep when we've had company over. He's always pacing around, barking, growling. He'll calm down with them, and then they'll stand up and he'll freak out again. And he did amazing with the bark collar, and it's something that we won't have to use all the time, but it's just another tool that we can use. And now it's totally different when you're dealing with a human. You obviously can't put a bark collar on someone, but thinking about that barking dog and what do you have to do to calm that barking dog down, because the normal things like using treats or toys and stuff just wasn't getting through to calm him down. It took a little bit of discipline to calm him down. Then once he was calmed down, that wise owl was able to come back in, and he was able to kind of have peace and to look to us for reassurance and to understand what we needed him to do and how we needed him to work for us. It just really transformed him, and that's what it took for him to get rid of that barking dog. There's a lot of things that you can do. Sarah talked about meditation, and kind of once you have this analogy, especially if you're working with kids, you can kind of explain. It's an easy way to explain to them what the barking dog and the wise owl are. And once you explain that, it can be really great even in the moment when they're upset. Just like Sarah said, you can kind of say, what's your barking dog doing? How are you going to get that part of your brain to calm down? Because when someone's in that fight or flight, panicking, there's no reasoning with them. There's no getting them to understand your point of view. You have to get them to a calmer state first. So I just wanted to share that little story. I feel like it really fit in with today's episode, and it just happened last night. And then I was telling Susan about it, and she said, oh, well, we should put that in. So we wanted to include that in this episode of Life Skills. Thank you guys all for watching these episodes and being with us virtually, as we can't connect in person quite yet, but that might be changing soon.
Hi, my name is Dr. Brooke Kyle, and I'm an OBGYN here in Eugene, Oregon. I have a practice delivering babies and taking care of women in all stages of life. I've personally seen the damage and heartbreak that coronavirus can cause to pregnancies and families. I got my coronavirus vaccine for the babies I deliver and also for the 3 kids I have at home. I got my coronavirus vaccine to protect our elders. I got my coronavirus vaccine to protect our community. The vaccine is safe, effective, and prevents 95% of coronavirus disease. We are all so tired of the heartache and hardships that this pandemic has brought. This vaccine is our way out of the pandemic. Please join me in caring for our community and getting the coronavirus vaccine when it's available to you. Thank you.
Hey, welcome back to Life Skills. We're glad that you tuned in for this episode. You know, I really love talking about brain science. We're just wired so amazingly. And sometimes things go a little haywire, you know, and we get a little bit stressed, or, you know, we're trying to deal with that childhood trauma. A lot of things can kind of come up to make life a little more difficult. So I really appreciated Sarah's illustration of the barking dog and the wise old owl, right? We all have barking dogs in our lives, and then Chris sharing his example, that's beautiful. I just thought that was awesome. But what can you do if you have a barking dog, right? I don't know. What can you do? That's where resilience comes in. And we've talked about that before, but being resilient, you know, not getting stuck in one way of doing things, because sometimes that's triggering to us. We have to learn new ways. So, that might look like taking a walk, which is what I'm going to do after this. It might look like journaling. It might look like developing a gratitude list. And just for your information, I found this app for the phone. It's called 3 Good Things. So you can download it onto your phone, set an alarm for it to pop up. I set mine for 9 o'clock at night. And before I go to bed, I'm going to just list 3 things I'm grateful for. So they'll help you to put it into like a feeling statement. So when I did this, I felt this way. So I'm going to give that a try, because life can be stressful, for all of us. And, I'm still dealing with my own life things. So as we all are, right? And, COVID continues to happen, and, we continue to be flexible and be resilient, and just be encouraged that things will eventually get back to normal, And so anyway, I just wanted to leave you with that thought. A famous person whose name I can't remember said this, said, "Name it to tame it." And what that means to me is, if I can name what I'm feeling, then I can calm it down, right? If I can say, "Oh, I'm feeling really stressed," or I'm feeling sad today. It was the anniversary of my dad's death a few days ago, and I gave myself permission to just have a good cry. And I shared it with some family members, and we took a picture and sent it to my mom. We did some things to just help ourselves adjust. And, you'll have things in your life like grief and loss that you'll have to deal with. And having some tools to use is a good thing. And gratitude, and especially late at night, it can help you sleep better. It can just help you in your life, because we can get caught up in what we don't have. But when we think about what we do have, that sets us on a whole new course. So I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Oh, one more thing. We're working on getting life skills live again. I don't know when that's going to happen. We're kind of in a bit of a surge right now with COVID, so it might not be as quickly as we want it to, but at this point we're planning for the first Monday in May. So stay tuned to hear from your case managers. If you want to know more about that, you can check in with them and they'll give you some more information. All right, see you next time. Bye.